Have you ever noticed how some people open their closet and it looks like a rainbow exploded in there? Reds, yellows, wild patterns everywhere. They'll throw on bright orange for a Monday meeting and not think twice about it. But then there's someone else, someone whose closet looks more like a shadow. Black shirts, black pants, black jacket, black everything. Day after day, same color, different outfit, same darkness. And here's the thing, it's not that they don't own other colors. Sometimes they do, they just never reach for them. Something about black feels right, it feels necessary. Honestly, it feels like home, so why is that? Why do some people dress like they're attending their own funeral every single day? Is it depression, laziness, some kind of quiet rebellion, or is there something way more interesting going on beneath the surface? Stick with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might explain not just why you reach for that black t-shirt every morning, but something much deeper about how your mind actually works. For some people, this story begins with pain. Picture this: you're younger, maybe a teenager, maybe even a child, and you felt seen in ways you really didn't want to be seen. Maybe you got picked apart for how you looked. Maybe your body felt like a target. Maybe attention itself became dangerous because every time people noticed you, something bad followed. The comments, the stares, that awful feeling of being examined like you're an object on display. So what does the brain do? It adapts, it protects you, and here's where black comes in. Black is invisible. Not literally, obviously, but emotionally. Black is the closest you can get to disappearing while still being present. It doesn't draw the eye, it doesn't invite opinions, it says nothing and everything at the same time. Psychologists have actually studied this. They call it a protective self-presentation strategy, which is really just a fancy way of saying that when someone's been emotionally hurt because of how they looked or how visible they were, they start unconsciously choosing ways to minimize attention. Black clothing becomes armor, not because they're hiding something shameful, but because being noticed once hurt too much. Think about it for a second. When you wear bright colors, you're making a statement. You're basically saying, look at me. But when you wear black, you're saying, I'm here, but you don't need to focus on me. It's presence without performance. And here's the painful part: a lot of people who dress this way don't even remember making the choice. It happens slowly. One disappointment, one cruel comment, one moment of feeling way too exposed, and over time, the black just became automatic, a uniform of emotional survival. If any of this sounds familiar, I want you to know something. You're not broken, you're adapted. Your brain did exactly what it was designed to do. It protected you. The real question is whether you still need that protection now. But here's the thing, not everyone in black is hiding from something. Some people wear black because it gives them something they crave more than almost anything else: control. Think about your own morning for a second. How many decisions do you make before you even leave the house? What to eat, what to wear, how to do your hair, which bag to grab, which shoes go with which outfit. It's exhausting, right? And for some people, it's not just tiring, it's genuinely overwhelming. There's this psychological concept called decision fatigue. Basically, every choice you make throughout the day drains a little bit of your mental energy. And research shows that the more decisions you burn through early in the morning, the worse your decisions get later in the day. This is actually why some of the most successful people in history wore the same thing every single day. Steve Jobs had his black turtleneck. Mark Zuckerberg has his gray t-shirts. They weren't being lazy or boring, they were being strategic. But here's where it gets deeper than just productivity. For some people, controlling their wardrobe is really about controlling their environment. It's about reducing variables. It's about knowing exactly how they'll look, how they'll feel, and how others will perceive them before they even step outside. And this often connects to anxiety, not the dramatic kind where you're panicking in a corner, the quieter kind, the kind where your brain is constantly running simulations in the background. What if this doesn't match? What if people judge this color? What if I look like I'm trying too hard? What if I'm not trying hard enough? Wearing black shuts all of that up. Black matches everything. Black is always appropriate. Black never asks you to justify yourself. In psychology, this ties into something called a need for predictability. When the outside world feels chaotic and completely out of your control, people often find small ways to create order in their immediate environment. And for a lot of us, clothing is the first place where that battle for control plays out. So when someone wears black every single day, they might not be sad. they might not be depressed. They might just be someone whose brain craves consistency in a world that offers very little of it. Now, there's a third group, and honestly, this one is the most fascinating to me. These are the people who wear black not because of trauma, not because of anxiety, but because black feels like the truest version of who they actually are. Let me explain what I mean. There's a theory in psychology called self-congruence theory. It basically says that people feel happiest and most authentic when their outside matches their inside, when how they present themselves to the world lines up with who they really feel they are. When there's a disconnect, when you look one way but feel completely different inside, it creates this low-grade psychological discomfort that just never quite goes away. For some people, bright colors feel performative. They feel fake. Like wearing a costume to convince the world you're someone you're not. But black feels real. Black has depth. Black has weight. It carries associations with sophistication, intelligence, creativity, and emotional complexity. And for people who genuinely feel those things on the inside, wearing black isn't about hiding, it's actually about revealing. Think about artists, writers, musicians, philosophers, the thinkers and the observers. The people who watch the world more than they perform for it. Black becomes their language. It communicates something that words can't quite capture. I'm not here for the surface. I'm not interested in being loud. I'm someone who operates in the deeper layers. This connects to what psychologists call symbolic self-completion. When we identify really strongly with a certain trait or identity, we naturally seek out external symbols that reinforce it. A writer buys more books than they'll ever have time to read. A musician surrounds themselves with instruments they barely play, and a deep thinker, they often dress in ways that feel intellectually serious. Black across almost every culture is associated with depth, mystery, and gravity. It's the color of the unknown, the color of space, the color of closed eyes right before a big thought arrives. For these people, wearing black every day isn't about escaping attention or controlling chaos. It's about alignment. It's about waking up, looking in the mirror, and finally seeing on the outside who they've always felt like on the inside. So here's where this gets really interesting. All three of these groups, the protectors, the controllers, and the identity seekers, they actually share something in common. They've each made an internal decision about who they are and how they want to move through the world. And whether that decision came from pain, from anxiety, or from a deep search for authenticity, it reveals something powerful. People who wear black aren't just making a fashion choice, they're making a psychological statement. And here's what most people completely miss. Those who dress in black consistently are often the most self-aware people in any room. They've actually thought about how they present themselves. They've questioned the defaults. They've rejected the pressure to perform a brightness they don't genuinely feel. Studies in color psychology actually back this up. People who consistently prefer black tend to score higher in emotional depth and introspection. They're the ones asking the harder questions, the ones who sit with discomfort instead of running from it. Does that mean they never struggle? Of course not. Sometimes the black becomes a cocoon they're not sure how to leave. Sometimes it's armor they've worn for so long they've forgotten what's underneath. And sometimes, honestly, it's just the most truthful thing hanging in their closet. The point isn't whether wearing black is good or bad. The point is that it means something. It always means something. So let me ask you this. When you reach for black in the morning, which one are you? Are you the protector, someone whose past taught you that being noticed can be dangerous, so you learn to move through the world without drawing fire? Are you the controller, someone whose brain craves order, who finds peace in eliminating variables, who wears black because it's one less decision you have to make? Or are you the identity seeker? Someone who wears black because it feels like truth, because every other color feels like a lie you'd be telling about who you really are? Maybe you're all three at different times. Maybe it shifts depending on the day. Maybe you've honestly never thought about it until right now, but here's what I really want you to take away from this. There's nothing wrong with you. Wearing black every day doesn't mean you're depressed. It doesn't mean you're boring. And it definitely doesn't mean you've given up on life. If anything, it might mean you've thought more deeply about life than most people ever will. And here's my final thought on this. The world loves to celebrate brightness. Loud colors, loud personalities, loud presence. But there's a quiet power in darkness too, a stillness, a depth that most people overlook. The people who wear black often carry that same energy into everything they do. They listen more than they speak. They observe more than they perform. They find meaning in the shadows that others just walk right past. So whether your closet looks like a midnight sky or a paint store explosion, both reveal something true about you. For some people, color is their expression. For others, black is their expression. Neither one is wrong. Both are deeply human. The real question is this: do you actually know why you choose what you choose? Have you ever really examined it? Have you asked yourself what your clothing might be saying about your psychology? Because once you understand the why behind your choices, you stop being controlled by patterns you never even noticed. You start making decisions on purpose, and that's where real freedom actually begins. If this video made you look at your wardrobe a little differently, you're really going to love what we explore next. We go deep into the psychology behind the everyday things you never think to question, the habits, the preferences, the patterns that secretly reveal who you really are. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it. I'll see you there.